Hello, I'm Liz Lumley from Finextra, and we're here at Sibos in Boston, and today I'm speaking to Satvinder Singh of Deutsche Bank. Now, you're speaking at Sibos this year on a panel that claims that over the past 25 years, the securities services industry has seen a number of game-changing milestones. So, how will those milestones really shape the industry now, and where will we see it go in the future?
If you look at the securities industry, it's developed tremendously over the last 25 years. So if you go back in history, you don't even need to go back 25 years. Go back 20 years in history, India, Indonesia, a lot of markets in Asia were paper-based. Settling a transaction meant you would wait for the broker to turn up any day he or she wanted to turn up. Fast forward to today, they're paperless, they're efficient markets, there's lots of liquidity. But one thing that's really changed in my mind and where the industry is today is around consolidation. It's around the amount of change that's going on, and it's also the amount of regulation that impacts the business. And that genesis of that change is basically 6 years ago. If we go back to the crisis of 2008 and the impact that it had, a lot of transactional banks said that's a great business to be in, committed themselves into it, and over the years we've seen that commitment wane because it's commitment of infrastructure, it's a commitment of investments, of technology spend and balance sheet. And you need a global platform. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the consolidation happen over the last 24 months. Players that have realized the importance of transaction banking but haven't been able to keep pace with the investment required. We've also seen tremendous change happen in the industry as well. Whether it's the ASEAN exchange link that's happened in Asia, whether it's securities borrowing and lending coming across globally, all these changes have a fundamental impact on the need to invest in the business. And the last change we've seen has been very fundamental. From being an industry that was light touch to having the regulators very concerned about the stability of the securities industry, making sure that the investors' interests are always paramount, and making sure that the regulatory landscape is conducive to protecting not only the players, but more importantly, the investors who are putting money into the markets.
So I'm glad that you mentioned the word consolidation. I hear that a lot from bankers in this industry. What does consolidation mean to you?
If you look at transactional banking, particularly within transactional banking security services, what are we selling to a client? We're selling a global platform with globality of service, with people that are globally minded, and we transfer best practice within locations. For a local provider or a regional provider, that becomes even more difficult to replicate because that's what clients are expecting. They're expecting the same level of service in Spain as they get in Indonesia, as they will get in Brazil. And that level of consistency, a very few, actually not even a handful of providers can give to clients. And that's where I think consolidation is happening. So the investment required to stay in the business is significant. The downside risk of non-compliance is very, very high. And then on the other hand, you have clients wanting globality of standards and services. You add that mix and you take that to a local and a regional provider, it becomes very difficult for them to stay. And I think that's where you'll continue to see consolidation.
So as I said before, you're speaking on a panel that's looking at some of the big milestones over the past 25 years. So why don't we look ahead into the future? What are some of the big game changers that we're going to see for the next 25 years?
So I think if you look at the next 25 years, it's a fundamentally very interesting space to be in. I think you're going to see congruence of asset classes, you're going to see congruence of securities and cash. If you look at the biggest themes in our industry, if you take the regulatory change and the infrastructure changes like T2S out completely, what are the big waves that are happening? Collateral management. Collateral is going to be king. Whoever can control collateral, transform it, make it available, will have an absolute leading edge in our business going forward. So I think the fundamentals will change, but the core necessity of a provider to be client-centric, put the client in the middle, figure out what the client wants, provide those services, be consistently excellent at doing them, but then the value-add services will really determine who stays in this business, who stays committed, and whatever that trend looks like in the next 20 years, it needs investment.